Nathan Hart, a wealthy and powerful CEO, walked into Maison Lumiere, Manhattan's most exclusive French restaurant, with his stunning date, Isabella Moore. The evening exuded perfection: elegant chandeliers, the scent of truffles, and soft murmurs of wealth and sophistication. Nathan thrived in this world of control and success, using every detail to reinforce his image. But, as he sipped his wine, a figure emerging from the kitchen caught his eye. Sophie Reynolds, his ex-wife, was serving tables. Nathan's world tilted. She wore a simple black apron, her face etched with quiet strength. But what shocked him most was the unmistakable curve of her pregnant belly. Their eyes met briefly, Sophie's expression cold and unreadable. She quickly disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Nathan frozen, his mind racing. Who was the father? Why was she working here? "Nathan, are you okay?" Isabella's voice pulled him back, but his calm facade was already cracking. Everything had changed in an instant, and Nathan knew he couldn't leave without confronting his past. Nathan didn't wait long. The moment Isabella excused herself to take a call, he slipped away from their table and headed toward the kitchen. His polished shoes clicked sharply against the marble floor, the sound matching the urgency in his chest. He found Sophie near the prep station, stacking plates with the practiced efficiency of someone trying to keep busy. When she saw him, she froze, her hands tightening on the edge of the counter. "Nathan," she said, her voice cool but steady. "You're not supposed to be back here." "I needed to talk to you," he said, ignoring the glances from nearby staff. His eyes darted to her stomach, unable to look away. "You pregnant?" Haha, Sophie's expression didn't waver, and his jaw tightened. "Is it mine?" A beat of silence stretched between them before Sophie shook her head, her voice clipped. "No. It's not." "What?" But Nathan knew her too well. The way her gaze faltered for just a second, the subtle tremor in her hands. It wasn't convincing. He stepped closer, his tone softening. "Sophie, if it's mine, I need to know." She met his gaze, her eyes hard. "You lost the right to demand answers from me a long time ago." Her words stung, but Nathan didn't back down. "You owe me the truth." Sophie's laugh was bitter. "The truth? You never cared about the truth, Nathan. You only cared about control. That's why we're not together anymore." Her words cut deeper than he expected, leaving him momentarily speechless. Sophie used the pause to grab her tray and brush past him. "Go back to your perfect life, Nathan. I'm not part of it anymore." That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. Sophie's words replayed in his mind, pulling him back to the years they had spent together. Their marriage had started with love, but as his career soared, their connection had frayed. She had wanted a family, but Nathan had dismissed the idea, calling it a distraction. He'd told himself he was building a future for them, but in reality, he'd built walls. They'd kept her out. The next day, unable to shake the unease, Nathan made a call. He hired a private investigator to uncover the truth about Sophie's pregnancy and the life she'd led since their divorce. What he learned unsettled him. Sophie had struggled after they parted, refusing any financial help from him. She'd worked tirelessly to rebuild her life and, most surprising of all, she'd sought fertility treatments while they were still married. Nathan stared at the report in his hands, a wave of guilt washing over him. Sophie had wanted a child, a chance at the family he'd denied her, and now she had one. But was it his? Or was it too late to be part of her life at all? In the days that followed, he began frequenting the Maison Lumiere under the guise of business dinners, though his real motive was Sophie. Every time he saw her, moving gracefully between tables, her face calm yet alert, it fueled his determination to break down the walls she had erected. But Sophie kept her distance. answering his attempts at conversation tersely and professionally. Worse still, Nathan noticed Daniel Carter, the restaurant manager, hovering near Sophie whenever Nathan was around. One evening, as Sophie was leaving the restaurant after her shift, Nathan stopped her. "Sophie, wait," she sighed, clutching her coat. "What do you want, Nathan?" "Talk," he said seriously. "I need to understand." She turned to face him, her eyes filled with exhaustion and disappointment. "What's there to understand? You were never there, Nathan. Not for me, not for us. You made your choice." Her words were painful, but Nathan continued. "You made a mistake, Sophie. I know, but I'm trying to make things right. There seems to be no end of mischief created by our two teams at war." She shook her head, her voice shaking. "You can't go back now just because you feel guilty. You don't want a family, remember? You don't want me." Nathan's chest tightened. "That's not true." Sophie's eyes pierced him. "Right? You were so busy chasing success you didn't even notice I was drifting away, and now you think showing up and asking questions is going to fix everything." She stepped closer, her voice soft but still full of pain. "Nathan, I don't need you to fix anything. I've learned to live without you." She turned and walked away, leaving Nathan standing alone on the sidewalk, his hands clenched into fists. Despite Sophie's words, Nathan couldn't ignore the truth he'd uncovered about her struggles, and about himself. For years he had believed that his drive and ambition were his greatest assets, but now he saw the cost: a broken marriage, and the possibility of a child he'd never known about. Determined, he found himself spending less time at the office and more time observing Sophie from afar, trying to understand the life she'd built without him. One evening, as he lingered at the bar after a meal, Daniel approached him. The man's demeanor was polite, but firm. "Mr. Hart," Daniel began, "if you're here for Sophie, you should know she's been through enough. She doesn't need you complicating her life." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "And you're the one looking out for her?" "Yes," Daniel replied, his tone steady, "because I care about her." "Can you say the same, or is this just about your pride?" The words struck a nerve, but Nathan didn't lash out. Instead, he nodded slowly. "I care about her," he said, "and I'm not giving up." Sophie continued to avoid him, but one night, as she wiped down tables after closing, Nathan approached her again. "Just hear me out," he pleaded. Sophie sighed, setting down her cloth. "Fine, say what you need to say." Nathan hesitated, searching for the right words. "I didn't see it then, but I see it now. I was selfish. I thought providing for us meant working harder, building something bigger. I didn't realize what I was losing until it was gone." Sophie folded her arms, her expression unreadable. "I know I can't change the past," he continued, "but if there's any chance, if this baby is mine—" "It's not about the baby," Sophie interrupted, her voice breaking slightly. "It's about trust. I trusted you, Nathan, and you pushed me away. I can't let that happen again. Not for me, and not for my child." Her words hung in the air like a verdict. Nathan nodded slowly, realizing that while his intentions were sincere, rebuilding her trust would take more than just apologies. It would take time and actions that proved he'd truly changed. It happened on a cold, rainy night. Sophie had just finished her shift at Maison Lumière and was trudging home, her feet aching and her body weighed down by exhaustion. The baby was restless tonight, kicking harder than usual, and Sophie felt a sharp pang in her lower abdomen. She paused on the stairwell to her apartment, gripping the railing to steady herself. "It's nothing," she whispered to herself, "just a long day." But the pain intensified as she unlocked her door. By the time she reached her couch, her breaths were shallow, her vision blurred. Her neighbor, Rachel, heard the thud of Sophie collapsing and rushed in, her face pale with panic. "Sophie, oh my God, are you okay?" Sophie shook her head weakly. "I'll be fine. I just need to rest." But Rachel wasn't convinced. "You need help. I'm calling someone." "No hospitals," Sophie protested, her voice hoarse. Rachel hesitated, unsure what to do, but her instincts told her Sophie needed immediate care. Desperate, she scrolled through her phone until she landed on the one person she knew might help: Nathan Hart. Nathan was working late in his penthouse office when his phone buzzed. Seeing an unknown number, he almost ignored it. But something compelled him to answer. "Mr. Hart." Rachel's voice trembled. "This is Sophie's neighbor. She's in trouble. I don't know who else to call." In an instant, Nathan was on his feet. "What happened? Is she okay?" "She's in pain. Something's wrong with the baby. Please, can you come quickly?" "I'm on my way." The drive to Sophie's apartment felt endless, though Nathan's driver weaved through traffic at breakneck speed. When he arrived, he found Rachel pacing nervously outside Sophie's door. "She's in there," Rachel said, pointing. Nathan burst in to find Sophie slumped on the couch, her face pale and damp with sweat. Her eyes fluttered open as he knelt beside her. "Nathan?" she murmured, her voice barely audible. "I'm here," he said firmly, his hand gripping hers. "I'm taking you to the hospital." "No!" Sophie tried to protest, but another wave of pain silenced her. Nathan scooped her up gently, ignoring her weak protests, and carried her to the waiting car. "Drive. Fast," he barked at the driver. At Parkside Memorial Hospital, Sophie was rushed into the maternity ward. Nathan stayed by her side, his heart pounding, as doctors and nurses worked swiftly around them. The words "premature labor" and "stabilize her" swirled in the air, but all Nathan could focus on was Sophie's face. Her grip on his hand tightened as another contraction racked her body. I can't do this," she gasped. "Yes, you can," Nathan said, his voice steady despite his fear. "You're the strongest person I know, Sophie. I'm right here. I'm not leaving." Tears streamed down her face, but she nodded, finding strength in his words. Hours later, the cries of a newborn pierced the tense silence of the delivery room. The nurse gently placed a tiny baby boy into Sophie's arms. Despite her exhaustion, Sophie smiled weakly, tears glistening in her eyes. Nathan stood frozen, his gaze locked on the child. "Noah," Sophie whispered. "His name is Noah." The baby stirred, his tiny hand curling into a fist. Nathan reached out hesitantly, his fingertip brushing Noah's soft skin. In that moment, a wave of emotion overwhelmed him. Pride, awe, and a love so profound, it brought tears to his eyes. Sophie looked up at Nathan, her expression softer than it had been in years. "Thank you," she said quietly. Nathan shook his head, his voice breaking. "No, Sophie, thank you." For the first time, Nathan truly understood the depth of Sophie's strength and the sacrifices she had made. Holding his son, he vowed silently that he would do whatever it took to be the man they deserved. Nathan was a changed man after Noah's birth. Holding his son for the first time had awakened something in him, a deep sense of responsibility and love he hadn't realized he was capable of. He threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he once reserved for his career. He cut his work hours drastically, delegated responsibilities at Heart Tech, and spent every free moment learning how to care for his son. Nathan marveled at the smallest things: Noah's tiny fingers clutching his own, the way the baby's cries subsided when he hummed a lullaby, even the messy triumph of changing his first diaper. But Sophie was cautious. While she allowed Nathan to visit and be involved with Noah, she kept her emotional distance. She watched him carefully, uncertain if this new Nathan was here to stay or just a temporary version of the man she had once known. One evening, as Nathan sat on Sophie's couch, rocking Noah to sleep, she finally broke the silence. "You've been different," she said softly. Nathan glanced at her, his voice equally gentle. "I'm trying, Sophie. I know I can't undo the past, but I want to be here for you and Noah. I want to be better." Sophie looked at him for a long moment before nodding, though her guarded expression didn't waver. Nathan's biggest challenge came in the form of Daniel Carter. The restaurant manager had been a steady presence in Sophie's life, offering her support and friendship when Nathan had been absent. One evening, Nathan found Daniel waiting for him outside Maison Lumiere. "We need to talk," Daniel said bluntly. Nathan folded his arms, his posture tense. "If this is about Sophie, I'm not backing down." Daniel's gaze was piercing. "Good, because if you're here just to prove something or to satisfy your pride, walk away now. Sophie and Noah deserve better." "I'm not here to prove anything," Nathan said firmly. "I'm here because they're my family. I won't make the same mistakes again." Daniel studied him for a moment before nodding, though his tone remained cautious. "Then prove it. Not to me, but to her." Nathan took Daniel's words to heart. He knew action spoke louder than words, so he poured his energy into rebuilding Sophie's trust. He showed up every day, not just for Noah, but for her too. When Sophie was overwhelmed, Nathan was there to help. He cooked meals, cleaned her apartment, and spent hours reading parenting books. He didn't push Sophie for anything more than she was ready to give, knowing she needed to see consistency, not promises. One afternoon as they sat together on the floor, with Noah between them, Nathan spoke quietly. "Sophie, I know I let you down before. I wasn't the husband you deserved, and I won't pretend I can fix everything overnight, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. For good." Sophie didn't respond right away, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, a small crack in the walls she had built. The journey wasn't easy. Nathan had to face his own shortcomings and learned patience in a way he never had before. But with each passing day, he found joy in the little moments. Noah's first smile, the way Sophie's laugh returned in fleeting bursts, the warmth of being part of a family he hadn't once taken for granted. He knew he had a long way to go, but for the first time, Nathan felt like he was on the right path. A year later, at Riverside Park, families strolling under the fall foliage. Nathan stood near the Hudson River, holding Noah in his arms. The baby hummed softly, holding his father's finger with surprising strength. Sophie slowly approached behind them, her hands tucked into her coat pockets. She stopped a few feet away, watching Nathan interact gently with their son. It was a side of him she hadn't seen in their entire marriage, a side she didn't believe he was capable of. "You're getting better at it," Sophie said softly, breaking the silence. Nathan turned, smiling as Noah babbled happily. "He's a good teacher," he replied. Sophie joined them on the riverbank, her eyes lingering on the city skyline. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the sound of the wind and distant laughter filling the space between them. "Sophie," Nathan began, his voice even but full of emotion. "I need to say this, and I need you to listen to me." She looked at him wary but curious. "I know I've let you down," he continued. "I spent so much of our marriage chasing success that I forgot what was really important. I thought building an empire was how I showed my love, but I was wrong. I didn't listen to you. I didn't see you." His voice shook slightly as he looked down at Noah, then back at Sophie. "But losing you taught me something I should have known a long time ago. Nothing matters without you and Noah. You're my family. You're the most important thing in my life, and I'll spend every day proving that to you." Sophie's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but she remained silent, her heart torn between the man he had been and the man he was becoming. "I know I haven't earned your trust yet," Nathan added, "but I hope you'll give me a chance to earn it." Sophie took a deep breath, her eyes drifting to Noah, who was now giggling at a leaf drifting by. She slowly met Nathan's eyes. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Nathan. Not yet." Nathan nodded, his expression soft but firm. "I understand. Give me time. I'm not going anywhere." Sophie hesitated, then smiled weakly. "For Noah's sake, we can try. But this has to be real, Nathan. No flashy gestures, no empty promises. Just here." "I will," Nathan said simply, his voice unmistakable. The three of them continued walking, the barrier between Sophie and Nathan not falling apart, as Noah and they were ready to bond. Nathan pushed Noah's stroller as Sophie walked beside him, their conversation light but sincere. For the first time in years, Sophie felt a glimmer of hope, not just for Nathan, but for the family she had always dreamed of. Nathan's journey wasn't about winning Sophie back. It was about becoming a better man. For her, for Noah, and for himself. He learned that love wasn't about control or appearances, but about sacrifice, patience, and presence. Sophie, too, realized that while past wounds left scars, healing was possible if both hearts were willing to try. And as they stood together at the park, watching Noah's tiny fingers reach for the autumn leaves, they began to rebuild what was lost. One moment, one step, one act of love at a time. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was a new beginning.